Writing, have you ever imagined being handcuffed inside the company you helped build? Imagine watching your own employees stare at you as if you were a criminal, while security marched you through the lobby in front of everyone. That was the worst day of Daniel Carter's life. A hardworking single father who had sacrificed everything for his daughter suddenly found himself accused of stealing from the very company he had spent years protecting. But just when it seemed his life was over, a woman walked through the front doors. She was the federal prosecutor assigned to another investigation. The moment she looked into Daniel's eyes, she froze. Then she quietly said, "Take those handcuffs off him, right now." What happened next shocked every person in that building. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional stories about kindness, courage, and second chances, please subscribe to Heartline Stories. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world kindness still matters. Daniel Carter had never planned to become a single father. Life had changed overnight after his wife passed away from a sudden illness, leaving him to raise his 6-year-old daughter, Emma. Every morning before sunrise, Daniel packed Emma's lunch, dropped her off at school, and headed to Walker Technologies, where he worked as the operations manager. Daniel wasn't the loudest employee. He never fought for attention or recognition. Instead, he quietly solved problems, stayed late when others went home, and treated every employee with respect, from the janitors to the executives. Many people said the company ran smoothly because of Daniel, even though his name was rarely mentioned in meetings. One rainy afternoon, Daniel noticed the elderly cleaning lady struggling to push a heavy cart through the hallway. Without thinking twice, he rolled up his sleeves and helped her finish every floor. She smiled with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Kindness always comes back, son. Maybe not today, but one day." Daniel smiled politely, never expecting those words would change his life. Months later, Walker Technologies hired a new chief financial officer named Richard Mason. Richard cared more about profits than people. He quickly replaced loyal employees with his own friends and blamed others whenever mistakes appeared. Daniel noticed strange financial reports. Large amounts of money had disappeared through fake vendor accounts. He quietly gathered evidence and reported everything to Richard, believing the company would investigate. Instead, Richard destroyed the documents and accused Daniel of creating the fraud himself. The next Monday morning, security guards entered Daniel's office while dozens of employees watched in silence. "Daniel Carter," one officer announced, "you're under arrest for corporate fraud and theft." Daniel looked around in disbelief. There has to be a mistake. But nobody listened. The guards handcuffed him in front of everyone. Some employees lowered their heads in shame. Others pulled out their phones to record the embarrassing moment. Daniel could only think about Emma waiting for him after school. As security escorted him through the lobby, the front doors suddenly opened. A woman wearing a dark blue suit stepped inside with several federal investigators. She was federal prosecutor Sarah Mitchell. She had arrived to review evidence connected to a nationwide financial crime investigation involving several technology companies. As Sarah walked past the crowd, she noticed Daniel standing in handcuffs. She stopped instantly. Her eyes widened. She slowly stepped closer. "Daniel," she whispered. Daniel looked up. It took him a second to recognize her. Nearly 12 years earlier, Sarah had been a struggling law student working nights at a grocery store. One winter evening, she couldn't afford groceries after paying her tuition. Daniel had been standing behind her in line. Without introducing himself, he quietly paid for her food and simply said, "Finish school. One day you'll help someone who really needs it." Sarah never forgot his face. She turned toward the security officers. "Who ordered these handcuffs?" Richard confidently stepped forward. "I did. He's the thief." Sarah's voice became calm but firm. "Take those handcuffs off him immediately." Room fell silent. Richard laughed nervously. "Respect, Prosecutor Mitchell, we have evidence." Sarah looked directly at him. "So do we." She signaled to one of her investigators. Within seconds, large files were placed on the conference table. The investigators explained that Walker Technologies had been under federal surveillance for months. Millions of dollars had been stolen through fake companies connected to Richard and several outside partners. Every financial trail pointed away from Daniel. In fact, Daniel had been the only employee who tried to report the fraud. Richard's face turned pale. He slowly stepped backward. Federal agents approached him. "Richard Mason, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." Same employees who had watched Daniel being handcuffed now watched Richard led away in handcuffs instead. Daniel stood quietly, overwhelmed by everything happening around him. Sarah walked over and smiled warmly. "Waited 12 years to thank you." Daniel looked confused. "Only bought someone groceries." Sarah shook her head. "No, you gave a stranger hope when she was ready to quit. That single act of kindness helped me become the prosecutor standing here today." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in weeks, he believed everything might be okay. News of the case spread across the country. Walker Technologies publicly apologized to Daniel. The board of directors removed several executives and offered Daniel a promotion with a much higher salary. He accepted only after asking for one condition. "I want every employee, regardless of position, to be treated with dignity and respect. No one should ever be judged before the truth is known." Board agreed immediately. Months later, Daniel started a company program that provided emergency financial assistance for employees facing family hardships. The elderly cleaning lady became one of the first people honored for years of loyal service. Emma proudly watched her father receive an award for integrity. When she hugged him after the ceremony, she whispered, "Mom would be proud of you." Daniel smiled through tears. He realized success wasn't measured by job titles, money, or applause. It was measured by the lives we quietly touch when no one is watching. Sarah often visited the company to speak about honesty, justice, and compassion. Every time she shared her story, she reminded people that one small act of kindness had changed the course of her entire life. None of us know what someone else is carrying. A smile, a helping hand, or a simple act of generosity may seem small today, but it can echo through someone's life for years. Kindness has a way of returning when we least expect it, often through people we never imagined. If Daniel had walked past that struggling student years ago, their lives might have ended very differently. Instead, he chose compassion over convenience, and that choice saved him when he needed it most. Thank you for spending your time with Heartline Stories. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use a little hope today. And always remember, kindness is never wasted, because the good we give to others has an amazing way of finding its way back to us.